This is episode 3 of the Guts and Ghouls podcast. I'm Dax,
And I'm Brad.
and today we're talking about the film Titane. This one is going to be very hard to talk about without spoilers.
Hmm.
So, spoiler warning right away. We're just gonna go over the entire film and then give kind of our thoughts on it. Um, and right away, I gotta say, I absolutely loved this one. I
Yeah,
actually
this was a very refreshing movie to watch.
I
I
actually
was
watched
into.
this twice in one week.
Oh
Because
yeah, I forgot you told me that.
I couldn't stop thinking about it. Um, and one night I was like, oh, I want to watch it again, and I like watched it right before bed, and I don't know if that's a good idea. Um,
Probably not. There's some nightmare fuel in this for sure.
yeah. Um, so all I knew about this, because I purposely wanted to stay in the dark, is that it's about a woman that has sex with a car,
That's all I knew about it too.
and that was enough to sell me. Um,
Oh yeah,
so
100%. I
I
I I
didn't.
I just had
Yeah.
heard that this there's car fucking in it,
Hmm.
and that it's weird as hell. That's all I heard, and I was like, okay, that's enough for me to watch it. And I
Yeah.
also heard it was the same person who did that movie Raw,
Yes.
which I think I saw. I don't really remember though.
I feel like if you saw Raw, you would remember Raw. I
Probably.
because I love Raw, and I this definitely has the same kind of like uncomfortable tone to it.
Hmm.
Like there's not a single point in this film where there's comfort
Oh yeah,
until maybe like the very end, and we'll get into that.
yeah, maybe.
So the movie starts with this kid being a real brat in the car, and you can tell the dad it is her like biological father, right?
That I would assume so. That's what I got from it.
Yeah. And she's like kicking on the seat and like making annoying noises, and he's like telling her to stop, and he's like turning up like the music because he's annoyed, and then she just decides to unbuckle her seatbelt and like get up,
Hmm.
and he like turns around to stop her and just spins out of control, and just you just see him hit the side of like the highway, and you just see like a blood splatter on
Yeah, on the
the
window.
window.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then it just like hard cuts to like open brain surgery.
Yeah,
Um
you get lots of shots of screws going in skulls and people moving guts around. Not
yeah, it's
appetizing.
very it reminded me a lot of like The Exorcist when they're doing like all those
Oh
like
yeah,
tests and stuff on her. And
yeah.
to me that's like the scariest part of The Exorcist.
Oh,
Uh
all that medical stuff.
yeah, cuz it's all just like really like metal, and there's all these like noises. I
Hmm.
don't know, it's just very uh discomforting.
Hmm.
And then so they install a plate in her head, and like the
Yeah.
doctor's all like, oh, watch out for any like neurological signs, like mood swings, stuff like that.
Hmm.
And I guess like it's the dad's a doctor because she's like, oh, you would know this stuff. Um, and then when they leave the hospital, she just goes and kisses the car.
Yeah, as like a child for some reason.
Yeah, she just starts like she's like kind of like petting it, like it's alive.
And
Um,
it's not explained if she did that before the accident or if it's just after. I would
I
assume it's
would
just
as-
after.
I would assume it's after.
Hmm.
And I'll kind of get once we get into our own theories, I'll kind of get into that.
Yeah.
Because we see that she has like an attraction to metal,
Yes.
like a sexual attraction.
Very much so.
Um, yeah, and then they don't really give a time jump, but she's like a full adult.
Hmm.
Uh, Probably I don't know, like 20 years
Yeah.
jump.
And you can tell it's her just because of she has the same scar on the side of her head.
Yeah, and it's like a very specific one. It's like a swirl.
Yeah, it looked really strange.
Yeah. And I guess she's just like saying it's like a birthmark or whatever.
Hmm.
But yeah, so she is a dancer for like car shows. I've never been to a car show, but like I vaguely know, like you know how they have like the women advertising the cars.
Oh yeah.
But she seems more like a dancer, like cuz like she has like fans.
Yes, people know her. She's pretty famous based on what we
Yeah, and
see.
there's like other girls too.
Hmm.
So yeah, so she like just gets up on this car and is just like writhing around, and all these dudes are just
Yeah,
watching.
it starts out as like a pretty normal kind of like sexy dance, and then it quickly
Yeah,
becomes her just dry humping the hood of the car.
yeah, and all these dudes are just loving. They're like taking pictures and they're like waiting for her to like get an autograph and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and I really like that. There's like this long like tracking shot of her going through like the whole
Oh
show,
yeah.
and you see like all the other dancers and cars, and like one guy I think like tries to touch a girl and like security throws him
Hmm.
out. And then I love like it's all like sexy and stuff. Like she's like dancing and getting really into it, and people are like cheering. And then it just again like hard cuts to like all of them in the shower, and it's like the exact opposite of sexy.
Yeah, it's very clinical. It's just kind of like showing you exactly what would it would look like if a bunch of girls were in the shower.
Yeah, it's like not like you know like the horror movies where it's like oh a bunch of like girls and it's like all steamy and stuff. No, it's just like they're just like in the shower and they have to keep like hitting the button for the water to come
Yeah.
out. Uh and then she drops the soap and gets when she's picking it up, she gets her hair caught in the nipple ring of another girl.
Oh yeah, yeah. The same girl that we saw in that opening tracking shot that was like, "Oh, don't touch me!" Like some guy was trying to grope
Yeah.
her or whatever.
So that's like another famous dancer, I guess.
Yeah, people seem to know all of them.
Yeah, so she rips out the hair. And I mean, I don't have boobs, but that made me like flinch.
Oh god, yeah. There's another scene later we'll talk about that made me
Oh
like
yeah.
cringe too.
Yeah, that might actually for me was like one of the hardest parts to watch.
Yeah, yeah.
But so she's like leaving and there's like a bunch of dudes waiting outside like asking for autographs and she's like going to her car and a dude's following her and she thinks like he's got some like bad intentions. So she starts running and he starts running after her
Hmm.
and she gets to her car and it turns out he just wanted an autograph and he was like a fan. Um which is very creepy
It is, and it
for
gets
him to be
creepier as the scene
dead
progresses.
sprinting. Yeah. And then he's just like, "Oh, I love you," and she's like, "What?" Like it seems like she's almost like used to this. Like she's
Hmm.
more annoyed by it.
Yeah, she just goes along with it because the guy she's trying to like roll up her window, and the guy
Mm,
puts his hand and like stops the window from rolling up, and is like,
yeah,
"Oh, could you give me a kiss?" He's like being like a weirdo creep, but she's just kind of like rolling with it, like because you assume that he has the power in the situation, but
yeah. And then soon he does not because
yeah.
he gets. She takes. I've been trying to figure out what it was. Even the second time watching it, it looks like a chopstick, but I couldn't
I
tell if it was sharp or not.
I think because of what something a character says later is I think it's supposed to be a knitting needle. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So she has like a knitting needle that like keeps her hair up, and
Hmm.
she just takes it out and just rams it into his ear.
Yeah.
And it's like really brutal because he's like falls and he's like slumped over and like shaking and like he's like like foaming like puke is coming out and it's like falling onto her.
Yeah. Yeah, that was
Um,
disturbing. It's
it
not even particularly bloody. It's just like
no,
he just starts like seizing up and foam is coming out of his mouth and it's like goes on for a while and it's like really like that's disturbing.
yeah, it's very similar to, like Texas Chainsaw, the first kill when Leatherface smacks that guy and he's just kind of like flopping on the ground and like foaming.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of too. Callback.
Mm, but yeah, and like I did not expect her to be a killer in this because that was clearly not her first time killing.
Yeah,
She was
she knew exactly what to do with him. It seemed like.
yeah, and when she like got out of the car, she almost felt like annoyed that she has to like clean up the body now.
Hmm.
And she like noticed like the puke on her, so she's like, oh great. So she like goes back inside to shower. And that's when someone starts banging on the door, and she's kind of like scared by it, and it's like this
Yeah.
really tense moment, and she goes to the door. She opens it up, and it's no one, but there's that car.
Yeah, that car that she
And
was writhing on earlier.
I don't know about cars. I don't know like if that's like what kind of car that is, but it's like pretty decked out. It's got like flame paint, like decals on it.
Hmm.
Uh,
If you were into having sex with cars, that would be the car to have sex with. That's
that's the
all I'm
car.
saying. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And she fucks it.
And a shot
Uh,
that made me laugh out loud because it's literally just a static shot of her getting into the car. You're outside of it. The
mhm.
headlights turn on, and
Yeah.
then all you see is it's just shaking.
Yeah, it's like the car's alive, at
Yeah, the
least
car still
from
seems
our
to be alive.
perspective. And it's
Good.
like got the hydraulics, so it's like bouncing as she's like bouncing inside of it. And she
Hmm.
has like straps. I think it's like the seat belts.
Yeah, the seatbelts are have her like her legs spread and her arms like
Hmm.
restrained back so she can't do anything. But she seems to be enjoying it.
Yeah, it was consensual.
I think
Um,
so. Yeah.
as far as car sex goes, I was trying to just I was more just trying to figure out how it worked. Like what went into where.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Is she putting like the throttle, the parking brake up in her or what? You know? It's hard to
Yeah.
tell.
I don't think we're supposed to think too deeply
Yeah.
into that.
No, we're not. It's just funny to think about what she's actually doing.
Yeah, and like when the car like and it's like bouncing, and it's like once it gets to like the highest bounce, I guess that's it, like it finished.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she was like, "Man, that was some good stuff." She was really pooped by the end of it.
Oh yeah, she was yeah, that's some good sex.
And then so she wakes up at home, and she noticed that she has oil coming out of her like panties.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that scene.
Yeah, and she was like has like a stomach ache.
Hmm.
And she's just like chilling in the living room, like making breakfast, and she's like watching the news, and they're talking about how there's like a serial killer on the loose, and it's safe to assume that they're like talking about her.
Yeah, I,
Uh,
I I assume that as well.
and she didn't seem too bothered
No,
by
she's
it.
just
Like
like,
she
oh,
wasn't
whatever.
nervous.
This is fun.
Yeah. And like the dad comes down, it's like really tense as they're like eating breakfast. Like he's like making a proper breakfast, and she's just grabbing like a bunch of snacks and putting them on a plate. Um, and then she's like, "Oh, my stomach hurts." And the mom's like, "Have your dad examine it." And she's like, "No." So there's like a lot of tension between her and the dad. You never really know what's up
Yeah,
between them.
I think we can assume that he's just never liked her based on that opening because he's pretty like mean to her when and that car crash opening right before the
Yeah.
crash because he like she's just doing things a little kid would do. She's like humming along with the engine of the car, like
Hmm.
that kind of harmless stuff, and like he's kind of being an asshole in terms of the music. It's like
Yeah.
just from that, I think you can assume a lot about the relationship and how like at least the dad feels about her as a daughter. You
Hmm.
know.
Yeah. And then we get to the part, which I've seen a lot of like, I watch a lot of fucked up movies. And this was surprisingly one that really made me squirm. They're out like on a beach making out with that girl with the nipple piercings,
Hmm.
and she starts kissing the nipple piercings
Yeah.
real passionately.
Yeah, and you're like, okay.
And then she starts using her teeth, and she's using a lot of teeth, and she starts like, and they're showing it, she's like pulling on it.
Yeah, it looked like they really did that to the girl. Like that did not look like a fake
Yeah.
boob or anything. So it's like, oh my god, it looks super painful.
And the girl's like, but she's like not having it,
Yeah.
and she's like grinding on that thing like with her teeth, and it's ugh.
She's
Um,
pulling that nipple like it's Laffy Taffy, you know. It's true. She got a good 2 inches above the skin with that thing. It's like, oh my
yeah.
god. By the
Um,
piercing.
and the girl pushes her off. She's like, "What the fuck?" And Alexa, yeah, her name's our main character is Alexa.
Yeah,
Um,
Alexia, isn't? Yeah.
Alexia, and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and the girl's like, "Oh, it's okay." I guess she was just like, "Oh, maybe she just got really into it." But it's clear then that like she is like really into metal.
Yes, yeah. It's like it's concerningly so.
Yeah.
Which,
So
by the
they
way, I
go,
don't think we mentioned, but she gets a metal plate in her head,
yeah,
and with that surgery, which I think is
yeah, it's a
important to
titanium
notice.
plate,
Yeah.
hence the name Titane. I'm assuming
Right.
that's where that comes from.
Yeah, I would think
Uh,
so.
and then they go back to the girl's like mansion. I don't understand what that place was.
Oh yeah, it's like a weird place where just people lay around and have sex with each other. I
It
don't
seems
know.
like one of those like like those like influencer houses where like all those like
Yeah,
where it's like a bunch of like people like that, probably all dancers like in the industry live.
I
Um,
that's safe to assume, I think.
and I guess the stomach issues she's been having are concerning enough where she got a pregnancy test.
Hmm.
So, and it turns out she's pregnant. And she's like, I don't want that. So, this is another scene that made me squirm a lot
Oh
where she
god,
takes her needle and just rams it up there
yeah.
and stirs it around, trying to give herself like an abortion.
Right.
But it's not blood coming out, it's like oil.
Yeah, it's weird. She wipes the knitting needle off on a cloth, and you just see black, like it's the black oil we saw earlier.
And it's funny because that reminds me of like when you have to like check your oil and you put in like that stick and pull it out and you like wipe it.
I was
It looked
thinking
ex-
this exact
it
same
looked
thing.
exactly like that. Um,
Yeah, and the thing that is interesting about this scene is that you don't actually see anything. You see her
mhm,
put it up there like off out of
yeah,
frame, but it's all done through sound, and the sound
yeah,
design in that is really well done, and it really makes you squirm and like
yeah. Because she's like she's really put like it's like something's resisting her, and there's a part where
oh
she's like,
yeah.
it's like a crack, like she gets it in. Um, and then the girl like knocks. She's like, "Are you okay?" Like her girlfriend, I guess.
Hmm.
And then she's like, "Yeah, I'll be out in a minute." So she cleans up, and they're just like hanging on the couch, and Alexia's just like, "I'm gonna kill her now."
Yeah, they're like making out on the couch or something. And
Yeah,
it's like really
and
sudden. She's just like bam, stabs her in the cheek, and then she starts to freak out.
yeah, I assume she was going for like the ear again or
Yeah.
something, but she like missed, and it like goes like it's like in her cheek,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just
and
sitting there.
she's like, "What the fuck?" And then she's eventually able to kill her.
Hmm.
She gets her with it, and right as that happens, she's like, "Ooh," like exhausted, and then some dude comes down the stairs.
Yeah, in this house they're in.
Yeah, so she grabs like the fire poker, and just he's like, "What the hell?" and like whacks him with it, and he falls, and they're struggling. And this, I actually really, this is where the movie is oddly funny,
Yeah.
and I realize, okay, I'm supposed to laugh because she takes like a bar stool and like is putting it over his head and is able to get one of the legs into his mouth.
Yeah.
And she's like putting her full weight on it, and he's like pushing up, and eventually you just hear that crack, and she like pushes in, and then it like we pan out, and you just see the leg like in his mouth, and
Hmm.
he's just dead, and there's like blood coming out of it, and she's like so tired, she just sits on the stool.
Yeah, I love that. I was laughing so hard at that part. I was like, God, I love this movie already.
Yeah, this is when I knew that I was gonna love this movie was at that kill, and then Right after that happens, a girl from upstairs comes down. She's like, "What's going on?" And then sees the body, so she runs, and Alexia chases after her, and the girl's able to get herself in a bathroom and lock the door.
Hmm.
And then behind Alexa is another dude, and
And-
he's just like, "Is everything okay?" And then
yeah.
Alexia's like rolls her eyes. She's like, "I'm so tired." She's like, "How many of you guys are there?" And he's like listing off everyone. And he seemed so nice. He seemed like so chill.
I know, right? He was just like he had no idea what was going on. He just like
And
being
I
as
love
nice as possible.
he was like naked and just like covering up his junk.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Do you want to like sleep on my bed or something?" Like he didn't understand.
Mhm.
And then she stabs him with that uh poker, the fireplace poker. It seems like she like gets him in the gut. You don't really see.
No, yeah, you don't really see it.
And that's when the girl runs out of the bathroom and they tumble down the stairs together, her and Alexa.
Hmm.
And the girl is able to free herself. She like smashes Alexa's head into the wall. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
that
then
was
she
rough.
gets away. And Alexia's like, "Shit, she got away." Um, so she just packs up and leaves. Like,
Yeah, because I guess she assumes that she'll go to the police, which she does,
yeah.
presumably.
So she starts hitchhiking. Is able to get like a ride to like a bus station or a train station or something. And she sees that there's a wanted like sign for her.
Hmm.
Um, and she's like trying to hide from the cops. And she sees, and this is where the movie for me turns. This is where I feel like it completely changes genres. I mean, it's still like a body horror movie, but it changes kind of what I thought the movie was going to be about.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this was the most unexpected part of the movie for me,
Yeah, she
for sure.
sees a like missing like child poster, like "Have you seen me?" But it was from like, well, I want to say like 15 years ago, so they have like a sketch of what they believe the child would look like.
Hmm.
So she goes into the bathroom, shaves her head, and, like takes off like the makeup and everything, and like basically like binds herself so she gets like bandage to like cover up like her boobs and her belly
Hmm.
so she looks more like a boy. And another hard part to watch is she breaks her own nose.
Oh,
And
yeah.
she's like, though for me though, it's like she's trying to figure out the best way to do it. Like she starts like punching, and she's like, "That's not gonna do it." So she like, what's it? She like basically smashes her head into like the sink.
Yeah, she spends a little bit lining up her nose perfectly to like break
Hmm.
it with the porcelain of the sink, and she
Yeah,
just slams her head into the fucking sink.
yeah. So she breaks it, and at this point, she looks like someone completely different.
Yeah, she looks like a dude with the with the cut hair and that nose
Yeah.
especially. It's she looks unrecognizable.
Hmm. And then, so I guess she goes to the police and says like, "Hey, I'm this boy." So the dad comes, and we don't really get much backstory um to the dad of
Hmm.
this lost boy. But it's safe to say he's probably not the best father because he doesn't recognize his like own kid, and
Well,
he
here's the thing. I have a different interpretation
okay,
of it. I will get maybe I'll describe this later after we get through the whole movie.
okay, yeah, I yeah. So he even has a line though where the cops like, "Do you need to see him?" And he's like, "What? You don't think I'm gonna recognize my own kid?"
Hmm.
So he takes Alexia, and they're just like driving together. And it seems like Alexia's still just in like fight or flight mode, like she doesn't know what to make of the situation.
Hmm.
So she's constantly just trying to leave. Like there's one point she like jumps out of the car and the guy like hits the brake and chases after her and he eventually catches her. And
Yeah.
he like grabs her and he's like, if anyone hurts you, I'll fucking kill them and stuff like that. And she's like, what the fuck is going? Like, I don't think she realized what she was getting into.
No, yeah, this guy, he's a little nuts, but he means really well. He
Yeah.
really does. I quite liked his character,
No,
this
I
this
did
dad.
too. I wasn't sure how
Hmm.
to feel about him because he is very
Hmm.
aggressive. But
Yes, weirdly aggressive.
he takes her back and he's a firefighter. And he's like, change, like get out, don't sleep in those clothes. But she doesn't want to show that she's a woman.
Hmm.
So it's all like awkward, and then he finally leaves her alone to change, but he takes everything from her, including the little needle. Uh,
Oh yeah.
and at this point, like he's just kind of like they just kind of accept each other. Like he's like, you're gonna be a firefighter. I'm gonna like make you the I guess the son he never really had. Uh,
Yeah, that's what I guess. And
and
I guess she's just kind of going along with it just because it's better than, being on the lam,
yeah,
possibly getting recognized on the street. Like she can stay with this guy for a while and lay
mhm,
low. You know, at this
yeah.
point, that's kind of her motivation.
The only problem is she's getting a little belly. Uh,
Yes.
and it's not looking healthy. And she's constantly like they kind of show like every day like her like getting ready in the morning, and when she's binding herself, it just sounds so painful, like her tucking in her stomach
Oh God, yeah,
and like
yeah.
like pushing it in. You hear her like going like "Urgh."
Hmm.
uh
Which
yes,
is true to life because I don't know if you've heard, but of like trans people in general when they have to
mhm,
bind like that, like if you're going like from female to male, like they'll kind
yeah,
of bind their
hmm,
breasts down, and if you don't bind it correctly, like she was doing, it can really like mess you up, like,
oh
and you
I'm
could
sure,
see throughout the movie, like there's like these horrible marks, red marks from the binding across her chest and everything, and
hmm,
it looks brutal. It looks super painful.
yeah. So pretty much at this point the dad like gets her like he like officially like shaves her head, cleans her up,
Hmm.
gives her a new, her new uniform, introduces her to the gang, the firefighter crew, which there's one guy who doesn't really like her.
No, yeah,
Uh,
that guy.
he seems like he's trying to be he's kind of like a suck up. Like he wants to be the chief's kid,
Hmm.
you know?
Hmm.
Uh, and there's like a really intimate scene where I think it's after like their first day together. They're like eating dinner, and she's still like really kind of like squirmy, like kind of she's always waiting for her exit, like waiting for the perfect
Yeah,
moment.
and she hasn't
Uh,
talked to anyone
oh yeah,
at this
that's
point.
another thing. She hasn't said a single thing.
Yeah, just
And
kept
the
quiet.
dad just kind of believes because of like whatever trauma happened to her.
Hmm.
Um, but she like tries to leave again, and he's just like, no, wait, and he just starts dancing, and she's like, what? So she turns around and they start dancing together, and she's still kind of awkward. And then the dancing slowly turns into fighting, like physical fighting.
Yeah.
And eventually she gets on top and just starts wailing on him.
Hmm.
And he just gives her the keys, and he's like, fine, if you want to go, go. So she goes.
I think it's important to note the two that like the punches that she was landing on him weren't like punches you would land on somebody to
No.
actually knock them out. She was like
Yeah, they were.
she was hitting
Yeah,
him
it's
in
like,
the shoulder, like kind of like how you would do if you were like play fighting with like your sibling or something like that.
yeah.
You know. So
Hmm.
it's like you could tell her heart isn't really into hurting this guy.
Right. Yeah, they have a kind of they form a very interesting relationship.
Hmm.
And at this point, it's unsure whether he believes that this is his son or not.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Um,
I fully think that he knew it wasn't his son from the very
yeah,
beginning.
right.
Like,
I agree.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So she ends up going like she goes on the bus, um, has a change of heart, as these like guys were sexually harassing some girl, she's like, I don't know, I don't want to deal with this. She just gets off
Yeah.
and decides to go back. And she goes back right at the time the dad is ODing, because he's taking like some kind of steroids.
Mm-hmm.
And she like basically saves him from
Yeah.
killing himself. And I think that's really when their connection forms. Like she realizes, like, okay, I'm safe with this guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that he
Yes.
realizes that like she is there to stay basically at that moment. So that's when
Yeah.
they kind of both go all in on each other right then.
Hmm. Because he's definitely a lonely dude living in like a two-bedroom apartment. And, like his son's room like hasn't been touched since he's gone missing.
Right. Yeah.
Like all his toys and stuff are still there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a nice touch.
Uh, so yeah, I mean, most of this movie is pretty much them forming kind of like that father-son connection.
Yeah.
While she's going through this horrendous body change, because her stomach is like growing and growing.
Yeah, it continually grows and starts like tearing as it gets
Yeah.
bigger. And like
Hmm.
underneath her skin you see like metal or something.
Yeah, because
It's
there's a
really
part
weird.
where she's scratching and eventually she pierces the skin
Yeah.
and like makes this huge snag, and you can see like the chrome in the tear, and the blood is like motor oil.
Ugh. Yeah, that scene made me cringe when she opened up her own stomach. I was like, "Oh." And the sound design
Hmm.
again is stellar. Like you get
Yeah.
all the grossness you need to out of the sound.
No, yeah, honestly, you could just like close your eyes and just like picture everything that's happening.
Yeah.
Um, and then eventually the dad invites the mom over, and the mom realizes right away that that's not her son.
Mhm.
And she gets like a one-on-one time with Alexia when Alexa's like, she's like changing out her binding. I think that's actually when she's picking at herself.
I think so. Yeah, I think she
And
had just like opened that wound up.
yeah, and the mom walks in and she's like, "Oh, like you poor thing," and she basically tells her like, "Hey, like I'm not gonna rat you out, but like you're in a real fucked up situation."
Mhm.
Um, and I think that was mostly the mom just seeing like obviously her pregnant and she knows she's probably very desperate.
Yeah. It's like it's weird. She says something like, "I don't know who you are, why you're here,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
please like treat him well," stuff like
Yeah.
that. So it's a very like sweet scene, oddly enough.
Yeah, it starts really aggressive, like she's angry and then she's like, "Okay, just like maybe you're good for him.
Yeah. Yeah,
Just don't
exactly.
do anything to fuck it up."
Please take care of him.
Yeah. And then there's one part that I feel like is very important where at this point that other firefighter we talked about, the kind of like the kiss ass one, um realized like he saw on his phone a picture of Alexia like the wanted picture,
Hmm.
and he's put the two together, and he's like talked to the chief about it, and the chief's like, never talk about my son, you don't talk about him, you're not allowed to talk about him
Hmm.
and stuff. And they're out fighting like a forest fire, it looked like,
Yeah.
and they're retrieving like flammable, like they go to this trailer, I assume, to get out like the propane tank so it doesn't blow up
Hmm.
and cause another fire. And the chief intentionally gives this kid the propane.
That's what I got from that as well. It seemed like he did it on purpose.
Yeah, and then boom, blows up. So I think that was maybe him like protecting not only Alexia, but maybe his own lie, because I don't think he really wants to believe that that's not his son.
Yeah, yeah. I think I what I interpreted from it, he definitely just wants to keep believing that Alexia is his son, no matter what.
Yeah, like he knows it's not good for him, but he's fine with it.
Hmm. Exactly.
Um, and at this point, like Alexa's not doing good, like health wise. Uh, I have no idea how she was able to tuck in that stomach, because at this point it's like, well, I don't know, maybe like 7, 8 months into pregnancy,
Oof, yeah. She has a huge like baby bump at
and it's
this
like
point.
tearing. It's starting to tear like all over, and she's got like all these like bruises and stuff.
Hmm.
Probably from the binding.
Yeah.
Um, and this is the point where she like just gets out of the shower and she's checking on it, and the dad walks in, and she's able to cover up, and he's like, no, like show me, and he like undid the towel, and he just sees her like full naked body, and like it's like kind of nice because I don't think he realized she was like a woman,
Hmm.
and he like covers her up really quickly, like, oh shit, I didn't mean to like see you naked, you know. And then
Yeah.
he basically just tells her like, hey, um I know you're not my son, but I still love you like my son,
Hmm.
basically, is what he said. And I think that's when they kind of had the mutual like understanding of like, okay, we're both like comfortable with each other, we both like each other. Let's just keep this weird father not son relationship going.
Yeah, and you definitely get the sense that Alexia is like all in on it too. Like based on
Yeah,
how she's acting and like her facial expressions, like you can tell she has genuine affection for
right.
this guy. Like
Which is something we haven't seen in her at all.
no, yeah, never.
And this is something I want to talk about, because a very common thing, like almost all serial killers, like the big ones, have had head trauma as children,
Oh, okay.
because there's a part of your brain, I don't remember which side or where it is exactly, but that is the part of the brain that understands emotion. So like empathy, sympathy, understanding that other people have emotions.
Hmm.
So when that gets a little fucked, that's when serial killers kind of start forming. And it's clear she definitely has these like sociopathic qualities. The fact that she is able to, without remorse, pretend to be someone's lost child is like super selfish
Yeah.
and very dangerous. Um, so I definitely think when she got into that car accident, that might have been like a trigger for her personality, basically.
I interpreted it that way as well. Cuz yeah, you don't
Yeah,
she never makes a genuine connection with any human being
yeah,
the entire movie other than that the dad.
yeah. She has more emotional connection to those cars than any person.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Um, but this actually might be my favorite scene of the movie, where all the firefighters are just, they're partying. They
Mhm.
have some like crazy like techno going, and they're like doing like a mosh pit, and they're like shoving everyone. It's like super violent. And these two guys like pick up Alexia,
Mhm.
and they take her to like put her on top of a fire truck, and they're like all chanting for her, but they're saying like Adrian because that's like the name she's been going by. And they're like chanting, they're like Adrian, Adrian, Adrian. And for some reason though, they put on a really slow song,
Yeah.
and she doesn't know what to do, so she just kind of goes back into like her dancer mode
Mhm.
and does like a really slow dance. And everyone's kind of like quiets down, and they're like, what's going on?
Cuz it's
And then it gets real sexual. Like she's like shaking her hips, and she's like putting her hands like around like her groin area and like rubbing around. And everyone's getting real uncomfortable. And the dad comes in at this time and sees what's going on, and he's the only one that knows like she's actually a female.
Mhm.
And he's like, I don't want to deal with this, and he just kind of leaves.
Yeah.
And then like once he leaves, she realizes like, oh shit, like I kind of like fucked up, and everyone's just like really awkward. And then after the party, she stays behind because she wants to get a little bit of that fire truck action,
Oh, how can you not?
you know? So she's in there just like before, just riding it.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
and then it's baby time. The whole movie, I'm just like, I want to see that baby. I just want to see that baby.
I'm glad
Uh,
they showed it to us
yes.
at the
So
end.
she's still in like the firehouse, and she's like really having the kid. Like she's like on the floor in pain. So she's able to like make her way to like where the dad's sleeping.
Hmm.
And also at this is going on while the dad is attempting to kill himself. He like spit up alcohol on him and like lit a fire on his chest,
Oh yeah, I almost forgot
which
about that,
horrible way to go. There's more efficient ways to do that, but
dude. Yeah, yeah, that was
you
rough.
know, maybe he's a firefighter. She's like, hey, it's got to be fitting. I don't know. Um, and he's able to like put himself out, and then she comes in and like rests her head on his chest, and she says like the first time she's like talked to him a little bit before, but this is the first time she's like actually like by her choosing spoke, and she just says like I love you, Dad,
Hmm.
and he's like I love you too, and then she starts like kissing him, and then she really starts kissing him, not like a child father kiss,
No.
and he's uncomfortable. He's confused and he pushes her off, and that's when he realized that she is like about to pop.
Yeah, she's like
And she's
moaning
got like,
and she's in pain.
yeah, she's like moaning. She pukes up a full thing of motor oil.
Oh,
And then he's like, okay, like we're gonna do this.
yeah.
So
He contemplates
he,
leaving her for a while, and
yeah,
then he decides to stay and help her get through this.
and she's like push, push, and as she's pushing, her like stomach is tearing, and you can see it's like a big metal ball basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the scar from where like her titanium plate is starts tearing as well, and it goes down like her entire body,
Oh, yeah.
and it looked like her flesh was turning into metal as well.
Yeah, I got that from it too. It looked like that.
And she gives birth to the kid, and you hear it crying, and then I think all she says is like, is it all right?
Hmm.
And then she goes under and stops breathing, and the dad tries to like resuscitate her, and he realizes she's gone. And he takes the baby and he just kind of like wraps it up, and he's like cuddling with it, and you can see it's got like a metal spine.
Yeah. Yeah. And you briefly see the side of its head too, and it
Yeah.
looks like it has the metal plate in the same place that she had it
Hmm.
surgically implanted from that car crash from earlier as
Yeah,
well.
so it's like this car human hybrid, uh and then that's how it ends.
Yeah, the dad just is looking up at the ceiling and he's like, he looks happy. It looks like he
Mm,
wants to take care of it, and
yeah,
it's kind of a
and,
bittersweet ending.
and that's the origin story for Lightning McQueen, basically.
This is the start of the Cars universe.
Yeah, this is the start of the Cars universe. The gritty Cars prequel we didn't know we needed.
From
That baby
this
just comes out and goes, Kerchow!
See, in universe from this point on, like there's an apocalyptic human event where all oxygen leaves like the atmosphere,
Yeah.
and so only
Hmm.
cars can exist now, or car people. So that's
Yeah.
why there's no humans in the Cars movies, as we see later in this franchise.
uh, so, let's kind of go back and talk about some stuff because there's a lot to unpack in this
Yeah,
movie.
definitely.
Um, what were you gonna say about the dad?
I think I got it out eventually. Earlier was
Okay.
it was just that I definitely think from the very beginning, like even before he even sees Alexia, just so
Yeah.
that when they tell him that they found someone who says it's your son, like before they even like open the blind so that he can see whoever it is. I think you could kind of read it from his like a expression on his face that like he knows that this isn't going to be his son,
Yeah.
but like
Hmm.
he's going to accept whoever it is, you know,
Right.
no matter what.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's just so desperate.
Hmm.
I think he's still like suffering from grief.
Yeah,
And we're not really sure what happened to the kid.
this is one thing I wanted to bring up as well because
Yeah.
there's one scene that happens earlier in the movie. He's on
Hmm.
a he's in they're in some house. Oh no, it's a training exercise.
Yeah, it's like a simulation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like he's in there, and then they open like a cabinet while all this fire is around them, and then he
Yeah.
sees like a burnt child
Yeah.
inside, but that only he can see because his firefighter buddy doesn't see what he's
Right.
seeing. So I was like, is that supposed to? Are we supposed to get like pull from that his actual son died in like a fire or something like that?
I'm guessing so. And then
Yeah,
maybe he had like so much guilt that he didn't save him that he lied and said like I don't know where he went or something like that.
yeah. Like he can't deal with the fact that he wasn't able to save him and like that
Yeah.
he's dead and you know that makes sense
Yeah, that's kind of what I took from it.
because the way the mom is talking, she's not talking like the kid went missing.
Right. Yeah.
Like when she's talking to Alexis, she's talking like the kid like died
Yeah,
and
because
like
she's
they're
like,
dealing with
how can
grief.
you live here with his things still here
Mm-hmm.
and just go on with your life and stuff
Right.
like that?
Yeah. So I thought that was all really interesting. Overall, like I think a huge plus of this movie is the stuff like that. Like I
Yeah.
love being shown in film in general, just kind of being shown things only visually
Hmm.
and not not being told through like exposition like
Right.
what's going on, like kind of where you have to figure things out for yourself. And
Yeah.
like there was a lot of that in this movie just because the acting is like so good.
Yeah.
Like you can read everything you need to know from these people's faces. You do not need
Right.
a whole ton of exposition,
I mean, like
you
after
know.
the first act, Alexia doesn't even talk.
Exactly.
And you can tell like what she's thinking majority of the time just from like the way she's looking and like reacting to certain things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know who that actress is, but she was really, really good.
Yeah. Um and what I liked I think the most about this was how like cold and just fucked up like the beginning of this movie is. And
Mm.
it's like very distant, very cold, but by the end it's like very heartwarming.
Yeah.
And it ends with like a lot of love, which I did not think I would see. I thought this was just gonna be some weird like serial killer movie or something. And then it's just is a very heartfelt story about like loss and grief and acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a big theme of this that I picked up on is like gender fluidity with Alexa
Mm-hmm.
and the dad. Because there's another scene where she goes into I don't know if she pulled a dress out of the closet in the kids' room. I'm not sure if that was like the mother's.
Oh yeah.
Um,
I'm not sure whose that
or no, I think
was.
it was might have been the kids because there was like a picture, and she like puts it on, and the dad comes in, and she thinks she's like doing something bad, and he
Mm-hmm.
like catches her, and he like laughs, and he's like, oh, like that's nice.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's another thing that Alexia was maybe looking for that she didn't get in her father was someone to look at her without labels or without like expectations of what she should be.
Mm-hmm.
Because towards the end, the dad really stops caring about like her becoming like a firefighter and a man and all that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So for me, I felt that was like a big theme throughout, at least
Mm-hmm.
what Alexia was going through.
Absolutely. Yeah. I definitely feel like she's like it from the movie. You really get that she's kind of been deprived of like love, especially from a parental figure,
Hmm.
like especially her dad, like for her whole life.
Yeah.
So I feel like she's like she may not know that she's looking for that, but she's definitely looking for that emotionally, and she
Right.
gets it in this guy that she ends up getting stuck in a situation with, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's really it. They're both like stuck in this really shitty situation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they're both able to find something really good out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, she is a serial killer, so she's not good. She's not a good person by any means.
No, yeah, she kills a lot of people at the
She kills
beginning.
a lot of people for no reason.
Literally no
Uh,
reason.
but I think that goes to show how powerful though the connection is between her and this guy. The fact that he can make a serial killer love.
Yeah, exactly.
That shows like I guess how like the emotions they went through.
Hmm.
The big thing that I want to talk about is because I am a huge body horror fan.
Hmm.
I love Cronenberg. And I have you seen Videodrome?
No, I have heard about it. I've seen clips from it, but I've yet to see it.
Videodrome is my favorite Cronenberg. And I got that a lot from this movie as far as like her transformation goes.
Okay.
And I in context to this film, I believe it's kind of like um females in cars are very similar. They're depicted very similar like in that beginning scene. Um and I think
Yeah.
society really cares about appearances, you
Hmm.
know. Guys, they want the best car, they want the nicest car, they modify it,
Hmm.
they do all their stuff to it to fine tune it to make it like the best just so they can simply say they have the best car, like ownership of.
Hmm.
I think very similar to how a lot of men view women, especially I mean just by society standards. Um, and women feel the need to also like change their bodies to appeal this fantasy.
Hmm.
Uh, and I think that her transformation with this baby is almost like combining those two into the next step of evolution. As in Videodrome, they call it the new flesh.
Oh, okay.
This idea of the body altering to what society needs it to be.
That's interesting.
So that's what I got from this
Hmm.
is she is kind of a product of this society's need of like possession of ownership of like the best coolest thing
That
and like
that makes a lot of sense because
hmm
yeah, women are like through that whole like that one shot thing at the beginning with all the with that car show. It's like
yeah,
very much like women are like very tied to the cars in that scene.
yeah, they are
And
like
like
on them,
yeah.
and the guys you can't tell if they're looking at the cars or they're looking at the girls.
Exactly. That's interesting. I like that interpretation. I didn't really think of it like that before.
Yeah, because that's very similar to what Videodrome's about. But Videodrome's more like violence and like the media and like the content you consume and stuff like that, where that kind
Hmm.
of alters the body.
That's really
Uh,
interesting.
so that's what I kind of pulled. I got like a lot of vibes as far as like the body horror goes.
Hmm.
Except instead of taking it in a much more pessimistic perspective, I feel like this one kind of does the opposite. Um, Maybe not so much in the sense of society, but more on a personal level of she was able to, even though she's dealing with like her flesh conforming to what society wants it to be or what the male gaze wants it to be or whatever, she was still
Hmm.
able to find comfort in another person being able to see her without labels. um
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so it definitely, I mean, it's still bleak, it's
Hmm.
still a bleak subject, but a bit more nice,
Definitely, yeah. And
especially for a movie where we saw a woman almost bite another woman's nipple off and murder 4 people. It had a nice ending.
It really did. No, I definitely thought that this was going to be a very cynical movie going into it.
Hmm.
Um, just based on what I've heard about it and like the kind of movie I thought it was
Yeah.
before seeing it. But yeah, it has a really nice balance of kind of the darkness of humanity, but also just kind of showing like how great humanity can be, like on a personal level, like you said,
Yeah.
between those two, and like kind of the almost beautiful relationship that they have with each other that kind of benefits both of them in the end. You
Yeah,
know,
and they're two deeply disturbed people, and they're still able to find comfort
right? Yeah.
within each other.
Hmm.
Even, I mean, after a lot of hurdles, but they're still able to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what makes this movie really really interesting. I,
Yeah,
I
this
I
yeah, sorry. Yeah.
the one film that I was kind of thinking of during this, kind of comparable to the tone of it, of like how it
Hmm.
kind of takes like something like so absurd,
Yeah.
I mean, a woman having sex with cars, like getting impregnated by a car. That's a super
Hmm.
absurd idea, obviously.
Yeah.
And but then it takes it and it kind of grounds it and it makes it turns into something emotional that you don't expect.
Right.
And one movie I was thinking of, which I think you've seen, is Under the Skin,
Yes. Yeah.
which that is like it's pretty similar because I mean Under the Skin, spoiler alert, the Scarlett Johansson plays an alien woman who goes around murdering people and like kind of consuming them. But through her journey of doing that, she kind of um, learns about people, learns about the worst of humanity, but also some of the best stuff about it, how like beautiful humanity
Hmm.
can be. Um,
Yeah.
and like that movie really reminded me of this one, and the way it was written and executed, like that balance of the light and the dark, and also something really super absurd that is somehow grounded in this world and like gets an emotional response out of you.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And
Yeah,
they both have metal skin under their skin.
yeah, they do. Yeah. Which, by the way, Under
No,
the Skin
yeah.
it's an amazing movie. Everyone should watch that movie if you can
No,
stomach
yeah,
it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Um yeah, that's true. They are very similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I just like movies that do insane shit like this.
Yeah.
Like it's so hard to like explain this movie to someone without like spoiling it. So all you got to tell them is woman fucks a car and gets pregnant.
Hmm.
Yet it's just not that. It's like so much more than that.
Yeah, that's basically the setup of it. Is just which is why I thought that that was going to be like the climax of the movie for some reason going
Yeah.
into it. The way people
Hmm.
were talking about it online, I mean, where they're like, "Oh, a woman, she has sex with a car." And it's like, "Oh,
Hmm.
okay, I can kind of picture this movie in my head." But all of that setup stuff, like she gets, she's pregnant and she fucks a car in like the first 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah. It's real quick.
Yeah, and then beyond that, it's like this like really touching story.
Hmm. Yeah,
So,
so in conclusion, I think we both really liked this.
oh yeah, yeah, I would say I probably love this movie. I have to
I
watch it,
yeah,
but I
I
think I
I loved
did.
it. Definitely watch it with everything we talked about. Um cuz I got a lot out of it the second time. Cuz the first time you're kind of watching it, you're just like what the fuck is going on? Like you're just trying to comprehend everything.
Yeah,
And then when you're watching it the second time, you definitely get a lot more of those like emotional undertones and you pick up on like a lot of more nuances.
I'll have to watch it a second time. I feel like I'll get more out of it, even more than I did the first time.
And it's definitely not I feel like there's a lot of shock factor in this movie.
Yes, yeah,
And I
definitely.
don't know if that's intentional. I feel like it has to be. Um because like I watch like a lot of fucked up movies and I have a really big tolerance to like gore and like, like really like stress inducing scenes in movies.
Hmm.
And this one actually like there were parts that genuinely made me squirm. And I know a movie did good when it makes me squirm.
And I know that too. If a movie makes you squirm based on everything I know you've seen, everything I've seen you've seen, if you're squirming during a movie, it must be well done in some
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Uh
um,
so
yeah, and I guess I'll give my thoughts on it as well. I mean, like, yeah, I quite loved it. It's definitely something you should try watching. Um,
mhm,
you just have to know going into it. There is kind of like a lot of shock moments and some pretty disturbing stuff, but it's well worth it. It's very different in today's film landscape, and it's like very
yeah.
interesting to watch. You know,
Mhm. It's really like a genreless film.
it is. Yeah, it
I
starts out like a horror
Yeah.
film, but it
Yeah.
turns into like a drama almost.
Yeah, and then right back into a horror maybe at like the end.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
All right. So overall, I think we recommend this highly. Um,
Yes,
we
absolutely.
both love it. It's great. I think if you're a horror fan or not, I would say I think
Hmm.
there's a lot out of it for everybody.
Yeah,
And just for sheer originality, I think it's
exactly.
really worth it because there's really not a lot of movies that take a concept like this and just go with it.
Hmm. Yeah, it
And
sounds like an exploitation premise,
yeah, like or
sort
some
of.
kind of B movie.
Right.
Like if this was some like movie made in like 70s, it'd be like, oh, a woman like fucks the car and she's got to protect it, so she's like killing all these people so they don't find out about her secret car lover or something like that. Um, yeah, so Titane, we both loved it, and I think that concludes everything.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next episode.